Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha, Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and cessation, there is no impurity and no purity, there is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no knowledge. Therefore, Shariputra, the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times, by means of Prajnaparamita, fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. Te ata om gate gate paragate parasangati bodhisoha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. The Blessed One said this, Venerable Shariputra, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Jandara Zamaraya Me Te Ata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangati Bodhisoha Papa Gonju Zonji Kaide Me Doji Shil Vadaji 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 Ragi Baji Metum Beju Danji Shirin Goye Zoha Kirin Don Jaji Juji Wada Me Don Beijin Dan Je Wada No Ma Junji Mon Zon Zon Jaji Jashi De Jan Na De Le Jo. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure land. Holy Lamas, high wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready. Shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Idam Guru Radha Mandala Gamni Radhayami. Yadan Zayi Janam La Janju Badu Dani Jasuchi Dagi Chinye Jipe Zonam Ni Rola Menji Zonye Jubaryo Yadan Zayi Janam La Janju Badu Dani Jasuchi Dagi Chinye Jibe Zanam Jin Drola Menji Zanye Jubaryo Yadan Zayi Janam La Janju Badu Dani Jasuchi Dagi Chinye Jibe Zanam Jin Drola Menji Zanye Jubaryo.
Odanga sulari chibu otan ma kashu kurda ta chibu chungun dena chuchibu chibu sungda shebasha ta chibu chungun lari kadu ledi marbe tala samba jama ngoda samba chibu tala ludu sawa samba jama ngoda jiden shema tuyi julu jiba dan jiden shema di ita tenpa nyi jiden shema di ita tenpa jawlu da lere nyinga nane lendre di marbe lendre tala lendre she samba dan sheda di samba Sanin jodu shatsu saji sundwa lende shesaba ngoya tan tin drebo drebo dala nabi lende kabi lende leji na ye jentamba saji sungno ne ta nabi lende cha kabi lende cha na somba leji na ye jentamba odele samarbe leji na ye jentamba as
Lessa.
odwa lezaro ya.
So once again, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. And if we look at this in the context of the outline in the specific section that we're in, we're under the major heading called Training the Mind in the Stage of the Path Shared in Common with Beings of Small Capacity. And within that outline, you'll find three categories. First, developing the thought of a person of small capacity, or the actual training of thought of a person of small capacity. And then the next category, the measure of the attitude of a person of small capacity, and then dispelling misconceptions related to a person of small capacity. Under the first category, which is the actual training of thought of a person of small capacity, we have two categories. Developing the state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of future lives, and then a second category of relying on a means or a method for achieving happiness in one's next life. So that's the actual section that we're currently dealing with, relying on a means or a method for achieving happiness in one's next life. And in that section, in the Lamrim Chenmo, we find two major headings. First, refuge, which we've gone through, and then karma and its results. So we're currently studying or going over the section on karma and its results, and we find that there are three major headings in that category about karma. We find first, reflecting on karma and its effects in general. Second, reflecting on the specifics or specifically about karma and its effects. And then the third category is once one has reflected on karma and its effects in general, and specifically how one engages in virtue and abandons non-virtue. So these are the three categories. So the first category, reflecting on karma and its effects in general, we find two major points. First, the actual way to reflect in general, and then the reflecting on the distinctions among the varieties of karma. So after we get through the distinctions among the varieties of karma, the 10 paths of action, and the determination of the effects of actions, under that second category, the determination of the effects of actions, we find three major headings. First, black actions and their results, white actions and their results, and then a presentation of other classifications of karma. So we're currently in the section which is called the presentation on other classifications of karma, and that begins on page 239 in English. Indeed so.
다데 건들 배두제 왔어. 펜지도 두제. 펜지길래도 두제길래. 도도 펜지래데 네 거길래데 나도 펜지길래도 먹이래. 두제서나 안에 도도 멀지 잡아이나요. 안에 메이텔란도 비도와도 메도비 동에 와스. 동에도 두바시바데 먹이 두바시고래. ane dawade gyu zubajo zoji la gma ga ni ga yoris magi le de ngasu phebare de zoji la ya ane gma ga ni ga yoris ane wade da nga zo don ro chetabal chaja ba ine chiku penje magi pheba inde ko don ro imbe jer zoji don ro dil da chetabal de ko dawad na dogen dawada dawade gyu ndebore dogen de again devils do you give magni ke zuwashebres what and what and ruruji lajana.
Let's hope. Yeah. So in this section called the presentation of other classifications of karma, we find the explanation of the two, throwing and completing karma. And so the explanation is as follows. When we look at throwing karma, this is something that's fixed and specifically either virtuous or non-virtuous. So when we look at the higher realms of cyclic existence, the gods and humans, these higher realms are created by a virtuous throwing karma. When we look at the lower realms of cyclic existence, hell, hungry, ghost, and animal, we find that these lower realms of cyclic existence are created by a non-virtuous throwing karma. So the existence that one abides in is fixed is in terms of whether it has been created by a virtuous or a non-virtuous karma. Virtuous karma creating higher realms, non-virtuous karma creating the lower realms. But then when we get to the actual experiences within that basis, that is not fixed. We find that there is a mix of virtue and non-virtue that gives rise to the concordant experiences. So when we look at the human basis, we have, for instance, wanted happiness or wanted happiness, and then we have the unwanted suffering. The wanted happiness and the actual experience of happiness comes from a virtuous completing karma, and the suffering that we experience, the unwanted, it's the unwanted specifically, and then parentheses suffering, we experience as a result of a non-virtuous completing karma. So when in terms of throwing karma, there is one or the other, but in terms of completing karma, there are both virtuous and non-virtuous actions that give rise to those experiences. So when we look at, in terms of, for instance, a dog, when we look at their existence, they're abiding in an animal rebirth. So it's a lower realm, so it's a throwing karma of a non-virtuous throwing karma. But then the dogs have various experience. They have happy experiences and unhappy experiences of suffering. Those happy experiences that the dog experiences, are created by virtuous actions, and those unhappy experiences or those suffering experiences are caused by non-virtuous actions. So this is how the basis is created, and then the details are come to fruition by both virtuous and non-virtuous actions.
Nebala Dana and Marita, Councilman Saint-Amons, Saint-Zubaris, Leg-Zubari, Leg-Shiva, what this is a maraba?
So the long kane, Sanje. So we find a quote from Lord Buddha that states that all of the three realms of cyclic existence, the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm, are created by a mind. So what was meant by that? So when we look at how the higher and lower realms are created, a positive mind creates the higher realms of cyclic existence, and a negative mind creates the lower realms of cyclic existence. So this is how we arrive at that, because it is karma that creates these existences. So it is negativity that creates the lower realms of suffering, and positive that creates the higher realms. So negativity being non-virtue, and positive being virtue.
Sa yishu ta Hindu ta Jewish ta otoge lagu zubares lagu zubares and then nabaje na sengu zubare legu zubares lelin na zujes.
So in the Christian and the Hindu tradition, the Jewish tradition, we find an assertion that God created all of these things. But in Buddhism, we say that the mind, the karma, creates all of these things. So this is what is karma. So again, karma is just a Sanskrit word that means action. So in the presentation of other classifications of karma, we have the distinction between projecting and completing karma first, and that's what we just went over. The next category, we have a karma whose result you will definitely or only possibly experience. Then we have those karmas that one is certain. So another translation would be certain and uncertain. Nyepa ma nyepa, certain and uncertain. So karmas whose result is certain or uncertain. So that's the section that we're going to be dealing with now. Page 240 in English.
Sabarebe masaba kan bawus rebe saba kan bawus sanji she saba kan bade ngebileres sanji she senapana sanji sujeba sujugu sane sanji sujeba teyan june musantane ane sanji sujeba yina what deba chabura ngebilere ndebe ngebatu yungures sanji shela saba kan saba so timbare magojo shegu sane june musantane magojo sheba yina ne ngebile ngebile magojo tudi songo san june musantane tudi sonba yina what ngebile in samarbete what things.
So on page 240, we find the major heading, karma whose result you will definitely or only possibly experience. So we find a quote from Asanga's levels of yogic deeds. It says, karmas whose result you will definitely experience is that consciously done and accumulated. Karma whose result you are not certain to experience is that consciously done but not accumulated. So here, consciously done and accumulated is referring to, for instance, when we take the non-virtuous deed of killing, for instance, if one engages in killing and has premeditation and thinks about it for a long period of time, then that killing becomes one that is consciously done and accumulated. If there is an absence of that, then we don't say there is this accumulation per se. So here, this is where there is a premeditation to kill, a thinking about it for a long time, and then an actual killing takes place. So then, if that is the case, and it is a karma or an action that is accumulated, then it is necessarily one that you are certain to have an experience from, or that you will definitely experience. If it's not accumulated, then it's something that is uncertain, that you will not definitely experience. So this is the qualification. So when we look at the other if we look at all the 10 non-virtuous deeds, if there is this premeditation, this thinking about it for a long period of time, and then one engages in any among those 10 non-virtuous actions with that premeditation, then we would say that's a karma that's consciously done and accumulated. If there is an absence of that, then we would say that it is not necessarily. So that which is done and accumulated is necessarily a certain karma that one will certainly experience, and then one that is consciously done but not accumulated is one that you are uncertain whether one will experience it or not. So the same holds true for virtuous actions. When we look at the ethics, which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, that ethical behavior, when we do so with premeditation or thinking about it for a long period of time, and then we engage in any among those ethical behaviors that abandon the 10 non-virtuous activities, then we have a karma that is accumulated because that is consciously done and accumulated and therefore certain to produce results. And if they are not accumulated, then there is uncertainty. Diksun.
nebile sa do so go no deba mo go sa gu san ne ju mo san da ne deba mo go ju je ba ina te nebile res nebu to so go sha da je ba ina o to so ta to res ma do de so re do de.
So when we make this distinction, if one engages in a karma that is consciously done and accumulated, then it is certain. So it is something that you will definitely experience or certain to experience. So when we apply the four opponent powers, then these four opponent powers have the ability to stop or purify that karma which is certain, or that you will definitely experience. So this is so we find later on these explanations. So it's important that we know what these four opponents are aimed at. Aimed at in parentheses. Aimed at.
Saba kanya ba hotu ngebi leje nyuan jua ma ngebi le ne sanje de shela ma saba kanya ma ngebi leje wote ge sanga ge lonte go de ngebi le ta ma ngebi leje ten ba du jin so ba res.
So again, from a Sanga's levels of yogic deeds, it says karma whose result you will definitely experience is that consciously done and accumulated. Karma whose result you are not certain to experience is that consciously done but not accumulated. So here, this is a summary, very condensed explanation of karma that is certain and karma that is uncertain.
Niba watane sheba da sabi chabanes watane malego niba shesa ge chabane tani les sai ngojero shebi le gaje na samba han sane ja le dang ngagi gunel ha 가인 바오사 상바 상네스 다 먹을 줄 사고 상네 상바 상네 안에 가지고래 류가 그는 나와서도 배지 류지래 당하길래
We get what doing.
다 먹어 류주고는 송 나게 나와서도 디바드 사고 상네 안에 류가 그는 나와 what the shebiles
Less so.
marbe what things
So then we have, it says the same text, so a Sangha's level of yogic deeds set forth the distinction between having done karma and having accumulated karma. So what is karma that you have done? An action that you have thought about or that you have consciously set into motion, either physically or vocally. So here, this is what is explained. This explains the first. This explains what karma that is done is. So karma that is done are any among those three negative actions of the body, or those 4 negative actions of the mind. So when one actually carries out any among those, then this is karma that is done. So this is what is meant by karma that's done. So it's set in motion either physically or vocally. So we find three physical non-virtues and 4 vocal non-virtues.
Less so. What is Sabiles, what is Marbe? So you go on Junimus and Tabaina, so you Sabile. Then Naji and the Kanga Dabim.
Less so.
Sabile, Naba Jobu Matuba de, Naba Jud Masaba in Jirwa,
Masaba Yimba.
That is Malado Shebata, Malado Tasuji Shebata, Louis Shebatan, Nyalantangarota, Nyalantu Shebata. Mashebar Shebatan and Sanji Meber Shebatan, Colon Tabu Meber Shebatan, Juncha Meber Shebatan, and Noah Nutrition Sheba, and Jane and Lesaba Yoroa, what to see, but Tamundu Jinto was the Dibasaba to see, but Mundu Jinto Shebatan, Raji Londo. Matebata, Dumash Nakala to the Jebis or Deba Sasa, the Anjoba Jebaina, Deba Chunre Gozarova, Niebisa, Deba Niebuyana, and then Maduba Shaba Gobala, Nieba to the Yobaina, Deba Chabin Samarita. Naba Juba Tele Matubi Lekayimbo, Naba Juba Matubi Lekayimbos, Jude Masabiles. Jude Deba Chabin Samata, Sabile, the Deba Chabin Sare, Guayina, Guachabin Sare, Deba Ina, Deba Chabin Sare, Takanda, Sabasana, Deba Magojo, Sagu, San Julius, San Tamaina, Magojo, Sabile. Magajumu to the Julius, Songos and Julius San Tamaina, Magajumu to the Sabile in Samarbe, what things.
Then the Loma 10, the Tapa Yin Go.
Loma Tempest, Loma Dana, Taba Imita Chagamaraji, Loma Matis, Taba to Jandiro. Loma Tengon Masu Mamuyoro.
They lay
Hoten, Poses in Marbe.
Less so.
What to look on Loma de Marbeta.
Then they lay Kanja Yimba.
Ah.
The Ranjin, the Tsuchin, the Loma 10. Then they lay in.
Alan the Nessetero. Malad Shevas a good one. Malado and then Mesobata, Mazabo Shebanana, what the choose and then Majibiles, Majibile, Masabai. Saba in a Diba Chabins, Goa in a Goa Chabins, Malad Shebate, Saba Mares, debachab my base.
Less so.
Masheba Sheba debachab mare, and Masabares, or Sanji Meba Sheba, and what does a galote, and the Masabare duares. Debachujun,
And then Lomaten, Guardian.
Lomate that Lomate is not that Rajish Lomate is not. Pana Gawala don't not be Gawa. Moniji Gawa, Gulungi Gawa, Tundeji Gawas, Taba Tambi Gazawas, Taba the Tuntambi Gawa is Taba. Gawala de Judy Juganina, Tuntambi Gawa, Moniji Gawa, Tunden Gawa, Gulungi Gawa, Jija, Gawala de Judy Juganan J. Tuntambi Gawas and Tabare Taba. Gawa Marco Tabaro.
Less so.
Tuntambi Gawares, Moniji Gawasana, and Gaza Son, maybe Gaza, Yusun, Tosun, Gaza Son, or Gaza Son de and Moniji Goa. Kulungi Gawasana, and then what the Kulung Gawasan done, and then Louis Shots have Las over the Kulung Gawa, Kulung Gawa, Shots have Ina, Kulung Gawares, Kulung Debi Gunalabaina, Kulung Magawa.
The Gulung Sampo, Gulung.
Gulung Zamajin, Shasabaina, Gawaro, Gulung Gawas, Gulung Dojaj in Shasabaina, Gulung Magawares.
Less so.
And then Tundeji Gawas.
Sunten,
Gawas, this is that, and Nashi in a Toa, Dushi, Samba Ilashid, Rebanga, Nashi in a Kundunga to Sundem Chamarve. Nabasheba in a Tikodo, Toa Yore. Dushi yore, Tuan Dushi, Samba, Ilashi, Rebanga, Rebanga, but there, Sanko Gawari Diana, the Tunden Galo, Gawari Nerista. G Gawayina could Tunden Drubukna Gawari, Drubukna Gawari. Sayunga, Yunga, Toa Dushi, Samba, Ilashi, Rebas, San Tamakodo, Sayunga Yore. Make Nabashi could hang yore, each Nabashi could hang yorda. Gasen could hang yore, Magisen could hang yorda. Gasen could not there, Tonden Gaware, Magisen could go Sanjungade and then Tonden Magawares. Lomate and San Cotu and what to took Lomate res, what the Secreta.
Just give me one moment here.
Gawala de Judy Gunaji, Magawala de Judy Gunaji, and then Lomate, what is
Geshe Senpai, Yila,
what the
Irasa.
What the Gisen could hang yore, Magisen could hang yore, Lomate and San could hang yore.
Less so.
What the Nabashi did?
Okay, so where should I start here? So karma that you have accumulated, is that not included among the following 10 types? So if it is a karma that is accumulated, it is necessarily not among these 10 types. So if it's an action done in a dream, so for instance, one could kill in a dream or commit sexual misconduct in a dream, that is not one of the disqualifications, that it's a dream. So this becomes not a karma that is accumulated. Then we have those done unknowingly, that you didn't know you did. Those done unconsciously, those done without intensity or not continuously, those done in error, those done forgetfully, those done without wanting to, those naturally, ethically neutral. So here, when we find something that's neutral or ethically neutral, we could say, for instance, it's a permanent phenomena such as uncompounded space. But in this case, when we find certain virtues such as liberation and so forth, these are not these are permanent. Therefore, they fall under this category of ethical neutrality. It is not. Rinpoche said it is not necessarily have to be permanent. But in most cases that was what we're speaking of, permanent phenomena. Those eradicated through regret. So if you have a regret, then this gets rid of the, this makes it so it's not an action that's accumulated. And then it says in those eradicated with a remedy. So here this is by applying some sort of remedy to the non-virtue, then it's a non-virtue that's no longer accumulated because a remedy has been applied to it. It says then karma that you have accumulated is the remaining actions, those one not included in the 10 types of actions. Karma that you have done, karma that you have not accumulated is just then the types of actions indicated above. So those 10 types of actions that are mentioned above. So when we look at the different types of virtuous action, so anyway, let me start here. So when we look at karma that is accumulated, this is a karma that has been thought about for a long period of time and then executed or done. So in the case of killing, if one thinks of killing for a very long period of time and then engages in that killing, then this is a karma that's accumulated. And the same stands true for any among the other 9 virtues, or for all the 10 non-virtuous activities, that if it's thought about and there's this premeditation and then there's an execution of the deed, then this becomes a karma that's accumulated. And that karma that is accumulated is considered the greatest amount of karma. So if it's a virtuous karma that's accumulated, it's the greatest level of virtue. If it's a non-virtuous action that's accumulated, then it's the greatest level of non-virtue. So when we look at the accumulation, the same holds true also for the ethics which abandon the 10 non-virtuous activities. If there's this duration, this premeditation, then it becomes an accumulated karma. So when we look at virtuous actions, we have various types of virtue. So Rinpoche was saying, going back to this permanent phenomena, there's a type of virtue that is called ultimate virtue, and liberation is an example of that. Ultimate virtue, there are 4 categories of virtue, and ultimate virtue would be the category where we would find this permanence. So next type of virtue is called a natural virtue. So natural virtue is, for instance, the ethics which abandon, the Getsasum, the 3 root virtues. So the 3 root virtues are those that abandon the 3 poisons. So the opposite of the 3 poisons are the 3 root virtues. So those would be categorically under natural virtue. And then motivational virtue is another category. So motivational virtue is referring to one's motivation. If one has a positive motivation before making prostrations, then that is a virtuous motivation that's created. If there's a negative motivation, then there is a non-virtuous motivation and action created. So then motivation is the next category of virtue. And then there's an accompaniment. I don't know the exact term for the 4th category, but when we look at all main minds, there are always 5 accompanying omnipresent mental factors. So there are always feeling, discrimination, intention, mental engagement, and contact. So here, this last category of the accompaniment means if there is if there is virtue, then all these mental factors are also this semjung. So these mental factors are necessarily virtuous. So the accompanying virtue. So if there's a virtue created, these accompanying mental factors, which are those 5, feeling, discrimination, intention, mental engagement, and contact, then those are all virtuous as well, those mental factors. So we find a very summarized explanation of these things in the collection of topics, which I call the logic primer, and then the collected topics, and then the low rig, mind and awareness texts, the low rig texts. So we find these points made and explanations given in those texts. So then we find these points, the source of these points being the Abhidharma teachings, the Vasubandhu's Abhidharma Kosha.
Le Naba Chubut Maimbe, Le Kanyabat Sabi Leis, Chubut Kanu Maimbe Sabi Le Karasana, that Diva Magua, Jut Sab Guin, Habasan, Junior Santan Shabate, Sabi Leis, Amarbe.
Less so.
Mago Chubung Chidisun Guin, Junior Santan Shabate, Gawaju Sabile. What the Santan Zero. The Jut what the Sabile the Maris. Sabilena, Gawayina, Gawachibizare, Dibaina, Dibachibizare.
So this last point, the karma that you have accumulated is the remaining actions. The ones not included in these 10 types of actions, karma that you have not accumulated is just the 10 types of actions indicated above. So if there is a presence of any among these 10 factors or these 10 types of actions, then it is necessarily not a karma that is accumulated, an action that is accumulated. So if there are these, I hope I said it right, if they are these, then it's not a karma that's accumulated. If one engages in any among the 10 non-virtuous activities and these 10 factors aren't present, or these 10 types aren't present, then it's necessarily a karma that's accumulated. And if it's a virtuous karma that's accumulated, it's a great amount of virtue. If it's a non-virtuous karma that's accumulated, it's a great amount of non-virtue. So when we look at what a karma that's accumulated, again, it's any among those 10 non-virtues that there's a premeditation related to, or thinking about for a long time, and then an execution of the task, or carrying out of the non-virtue.
Ta shibile, sabile, ta masabile, jute, masabile.
So we have first karma that is done, then we have karma that is accumulated, and then we have an explanation of karma that is not accumulated.
Oje, ta tenma tela oba dua le am maji song dua, tela oba dua ya maji te tari wanga su tenma dure.
So we find in Asanga's Compendium of Determinations this presentation of the 4 possibilities, or the 4 permutations relating to the 2 karma that's done and karma that's accumulated.
Tela oba dua sanga ki wate sadeng a do nani nane dua to kundus dua to wate do nani chire.
So when we look at Asanga's texts, we find that there are 2 categories. First, the 5 treatises on the levels, and then the 2 compendiums. So this categorically falls under one of the 2 compendiums, and this is called the Compendium of Determinations.
Tenla duaya majishete, ta suju shela masabi matushohosana, suju shela masabi mane, mekebi sheba tang, malana sheba tang, cheto, maji batang, mendo jindo jenji neji cheto, chubatang, leji kuna sheshin, tenenjang jubatang, nyemi jis, sambatabe, chungne, ponyu dombalane, ane shindu sama shebatang, ane nami jeba, jiden bi chade je saben nyam he batang, ane jiden le debi, ane lan je saben taba sheba, saben taba sheba, what takar sugre. Ta duale suju shela masabas, suju shela masabate, suju shela masabane, suju shesana, suju shela masabate wateres marbe. Ne mekebi shebas, mekebi shebat wate, ane masabi leinsana, odel tuba yogares. Mekebi shebat jaba ina tamal tenju gune to chebatala, kebi dibat yongare, mekebi dibat chebar sa juyo marbe. O tata chingen gundu seta, mekebi shebat zate, mekebi zate sholom mekebatan, oma zuyu suju basa. Oma ki suju bakare ina, ta kante suju chuchung jinsare, dibat chebi jinsamare. Ne suju shela, suju shela masaba ne mekebi shebas, mekebi shebi dibat chujisana, keba de mekeba nyingina ne mekebi shebi dibat jana riga mudusita. Te jaba ina mekebi dibat jiwa yinsu, son yuares. kebi deba de yang gare meke deba chewa tenji gun do jo ka tu sin sabres ba su sheji wote ndiga mundos de meke se shuelong meke ba da shuelong meke ba oma zu su je ba ka de su je deba chu chu jin sa
the uma zu nge de yabush
oma malgare da malge oma kare na karche na su je ban je men wo dan ji ja sha ta ka de 다 간데 와도 수조 조조지 디바 처빙 사마래 그게 비시바다
가르시네 데 우마 세 조금
오마 주 수조 바스는 지 디바 처 매바 지 수조 아니면도
우마 주
멀게 네 멀게 오마게 지 수조 바지면도 오마 돈 수조 아니 나가리나 하고 말해 와더니 지하셨대 케바도 마케비 디바니는 마케바도 아주 마레스 데 마케바서 디바 조종지레스 어떤들라서 말해
So the Compendium of Determinations presents 4 permutations between karma done and karma accumulated. So then, if one were to say, posit that which is karma that is done but not accumulated, then we would have the following points that are made. So it says, killing that is karma which you have done but not accumulated is seen in the following cases: that done unknowingly, that done in a dream, that not done intentionally, that which another person forced you to do against your will, that done only once and then regretted, that much lessened upon assuming a vow to give up killing after overcoming the desire to kill by means of a deep understanding of its faults, that whose seed you weaken before its fruition can start by means of separating from worldly attachment, and that whose seed you have actually destroyed with the super mundane path of elimination. So we find something curious. Then Basu Chuji Jetson, the Dowa Yapuldu, the Kepa, Gangisena Ngama, the Den, Genjdo, the Kepa, the Mekepa, Chapagare, the Kepa, the Migewa. Then Basu, the Garyar, the Yapuldu, the Yapiomare.
Sujo Shela Masabas, Dua Majig non Tambutro.
Lesser.
Sujo Shela Masabatanol, Mekebi Sheba Tambalego.
Then
Mekebi Sheba Dina, Kebi Diba de Yangaji, Mekebi Diba de Chiwa is Taman Sunsaros.
The Chapa,
Pasuchu Jazz.
Lesser.
What the Jigman does is that.
Lesser.
The Mekesa Diba de Chuajil go.
Lesser. So there's something curious that Basu Chuji Jetson points out in his commentary about this. So when we look at that done unknowingly, the word here unknowingly is the same word that's previously used when we go back to the power of the basis. So when we go back to that section, we find that it says that virtue, those who are scholars create less non-virtue than those who are not scholars. So previously, we had this point that's made, those who are knowledgeable. So this word knowledgeable is the same kind of word that we're using in this next section that says knowingly. So the word kepa means a scholar, those who are knowledgeable. So it seems to be contradictory here because it's saying that previously it's saying that those who don't know or are unknowing are those that create, those that are unknowing are those that create less non-virtue here, according to this. But previously it said those who are unknowing create more non-virtue. So we can't say that this is a pervasive statement. And in the English, it looks a little different, like knowledge and done knowingly almost looks like you didn't, but the word is really like more of a word for scholar. So the Basuchuji Jetsun points out that that word is there and that it seems to be contradictory when we look at previously in the Power of the Basis section, that the basis of a scholar is better in terms of creating less non-virtue than the basis of one who's not a scholar. So that's Rinpoche pointed that out, that was Basuchuji Jetsun pointed out. And then there's something here that I'm not understanding, and I really apologize. Something about milk not killing. I'm really not following it correctly, so I just have to, it's only one sentence, but I'm not understanding it, and I don't want to waste any more time. Maybe at break I can look through the Tibetan and see what I'm missing, but I don't see it embedded in the English. So, okay, uma yure.
Dene yomar babagri asuji deban yo. Oma zu su chebasa.
Zu.
Oma zu su chebasa on oma ge takare na ji su judgment deba chebe ba ji yosare.
Uma zu meki.
Oma zu su chebasa takade oma ton su cheba ina ji insare da. Oma ton su koseya ji yosare ko kangen jira meba mendo. Deba chuchu insare da.
So something about giving milk with the intention of killing, because the milk can't kill. So it's something that makes it something that's done but not accumulated. So for instance, so I think the point is that you're giving someone something that can't carry out the actual task, or something to that degree. Let's move on, but it's something like that. It's like giving someone milk isn't going to kill them. So it's something to that point. It's in the commentary, Basuchuji Jetsun's commentary. It's not in the actual Lama Tsongkhapa's text.
Tab malana shebas malana ngato maseba malanta yoro. Oti yiro. Malana maseba malanta yoro. Oti diba chebuka marwa. Malana shebas.
So the next is done in a dream. I think I'm going to just try this. I think that it's unknowingly. The person doesn't know that the milk won't harm, but the milk, that could be a case that it's done unknowingly. So you don't know that the milk isn't going to kill the person, but you give them that for that purpose. So I think that, because it's connected to this knowingly section. So that done in a dream. So when one's in a dream, that isn't an action that is an accumulated action, but it's one that's done.
Tene chetu maje bata mendo jindu jenje nede chetu jubas ane su je deba me jindu jenge ane su je juba ina deba chuju zamarbe chetu maje bata mendo jindu jenje neje chetu juba dans o deba chuju zare.
So then these are all examples of misdeeds that then are small. So because they aren't accumulated. So the next is that done unintentionally. So if you don't have the desire, for instance, to kill, or you don't want to, but it happens, then this is that done unintentionally. Not done intentionally. So unintentional action.
Ta leji kona jeje leji kona suju tenen joba jeba ina diba ko chundu ja go jerwa. Joba ta nyemi je senta be chune ne nyemi senta be chune pon yu domba lan ne shin du sam shi ba sa joba je ne domba lan ba ina deba su joba ko deba chuchun zu ja go jerwa deba chim mare se.
So I needed to read on. I didn't read far enough. That not done intentionally, that which another person forced you to do against your will. The megenda the Cheran Suchupa. You're in the Puik. Megenda the Ngala the Cheran Suchu.
Taman Romazme. Chedu Maje Badan, Mando Jin to Jenji, Neji Chedu Jubas, Jeng Chusu Juju.
Then Yamdu, Medu.
Mando Jin to Kusuja and Dobayuma.
Less so.
Mando Jin to Anusu Jujuba in a Jenji.
So this goes to, these two do go together. These two sentences. Unintentionally that which another person forced you to do against your will. So that's included in the, you don't have a desire to do it, but you don't want to do it, but you do it. because it says because another person forced you to. You didn't have the intention to do it. And then it says that done only once and then regretted. Then jupa, the temchi, then jupa.
Shit jupa.
Yeah.
What the medicine choose su jupa what the diba chujun.
The temchi yengu.
Tenchi to woman that woman to the land kona suju. Then Jobajene, Dibal Yemitone, Chini Chusung, Nason Jala Soba, the Tone, Domba Lambaina, and the code Dibate and Masabar in the Wajero, Dibachim Mabarin, so much about the house.
So it says that once you have done it only once and then regretted it. When we look at that in terms of the degrees of non-virtue, so we have the great degree, a medium degree, and a small degree. This categorically then falls under that small degree. After there is that just doing it once and then regret, saying, "Oh my gosh, I regret doing that."
Sujobi Nami de Ninga Huljero. Sujobi Nami de Telenuji de Jide Belan, the Jiden de Belani Yungro. Sujobi Ledele, Ningasut Jag Nuba Euro. Nasut Jag Nuba de Jiden Belang in Yabashabaji Yungre, Jiden de Belang in Yabashabani Yungro. Jiden Yabas Tamuduba Gun, and then what the Shamba Gun. What the Jene and Tingas Guna, Desma Chundra Giro. Jidel Debilan, Tolan Gona to the Marve, Tolan Gona to the Tony to Balatene, this Sabbath Jeba Mabazun, Judgment 2 hours, then later Chivaramaru, Mabarendo.
Then Rinpoche, the Dumba.
Laji Konashi, Neja. Joba, and the Deba Mago, Yemi Tone.
Okay.
Yemi Gisent Abitune, and the Dombalane, Magajumu Chudin Lasu, Dombalane Shinto, Salmon Shevas, Deba Chujun Jabares, Giro,
Less.
What about Giro?
So then that much lessened, assuming a vow to give up killing after overcoming a desire kill by means of a deep understanding of its faults. So the Suchupi Jun Sanodam, the Nanga Yamdu?
Suchupi Jun
the Suchupa Jun Yure, the Jun Gare.
Nuba. Suchupi Lel, Dungajinu Nuba Yuru. Okay,
so here a deep understanding of the faults is referring to the ability that the killing has. So what the ability of that killing is, and that's the lower realm rebirth. So when we look at, then it says, those whose seed you weaken before its fruition can start by means of separating from worldly attachment, and those whose seeds you have actually destroyed with a supermundane path of elimination. So when we look at these separating from worldly attachment, here we're referring to a worldly paths. So worldly paths refer to those meditations such as the meditation on impurity or ugliness, or meditation upon love, or single-pointed concentration. The Medupa Gom Shamba Gom Dang Tingensin.
Dan Jidebi Lans, the Tony Matubi Kaza, Jidebi Lango, things go there. Could enter the new
less so.
But the near Churo.
What
the inner Colonel.
Less so.
Tony Monson to be Tony love me, and things go by Ina, and no could summon Joe Nundra, Dajun to the bomb Dajun to what does you say, Marbra?
So, and we look. So, going back to separating from worldly attachment, the worldly paths, we can gain through single-pointed concentration on impurity or ugliness, or single-pointed concentration on love, and so forth. So, this becomes the worldly path, which weaken its fruition. But then, when we look at how the seeds themselves are destroyed, they're done so by the wisdom realizing emptiness. So, when we look at where that begins, or that wisdom of that understands emptiness begins, we find that at the path of seeing, then the path of meditation, and then we have no more learning, where those seeds have been abandoned. So this is what is meant by these beginning to start to separate from worldly attachment. This beginning is referring to those mundane paths, and then these super mundane paths are those that destroy the seeds. So that is what is meant in this section. Rinpoche Chutsu Jedang Kanga. So we'll take a short break and we'll be back. Oh, okay.
Sala majiba suje sala majiba suje sala majiba ndere doa socha subi sher yene modne jesu toji kyoba shela su majiba hos suje sala majiba do ndere doa ojo angten gundo anga suje sala majiba ne suje suje ya gdenda jene mo sandan su majena suje sala majiba res ode te abre do de ode njugo do
So we're on page 241. So when we look at the four permutations or four possibilities, we've gone through the first possibility or the first permutation. So a killing that is done but not accumulated. So we're comparing these two topics, killing that's done and killing that's accumulated. So there are four possibilities or four permutations. So we've gone through one of them. So a killing that's done but not accumulated. So next we move on to a killing that's accumulated but not done. So this is the next possibility. So it reads as follows. Killing that is karma that you have accumulated but not done is seen in the following case. You investigate and analyze for a long time in order to kill a living being but do not kill it.
Suje sala majiba suje sala majiba ne su jebi sher yerimbo santan ne jesu toji kyoba shela su majiba hos su jogu sansan juri mata su majiba ina suje sala majiba res.
So here this example is a killing karma that is accumulated but not done. So here when one thinks about killing for a very long period of time or killing someone, there's this premeditation, and then there isn't actually, the task isn't completed, the task isn't executed. Then this, in the case of killing, is a killing that is accumulated but not done. So there's an accumulation there, but one didn't actually engage in it, and this is because of that intense amount of analysis or premeditation.
So the
thinking for it a long time makes it accumulated.
Suje sala majiba mayimbi and suje le tanje and shela sabile res the bas juje wadele and jongo josu san suje le what the suje shela masaba te jongo josu san le ganga res jongo josu san suje le tanje suje shela masabile res what the bas juje jongo josu hotel jaja
Enjoy Jusson Ale that
so jogo sandan joa marve and so jogol jesu rajena jongo josu san what the le tanje what the jela sabile.
So next is that which is both. So this is the next permutation, something which is a killing that is done and accumulated. So it says killing that is karma that you have done and accumulated is seen in all killing not included in the previous two permutations. So anytime one engages in killing, but it's not a killing that would be included in one of those two, then it's necessarily a karma that which is a common locus between those two, karma that is done and karma that is accumulated. So here we're using the example of killing, and we relate that to the other non-virtues as well. And Basu Chuji Jetson says here, an example of this would be a karma that is qualified by the three attitudes, or the three, we'll just say three categories. First, when we look at what those are, it's identifying an object that one is motivated or thinks about killing, in the case of killing, and then actually carrying out the killing, and then the rejoicing in it. So it's the pre-step, the actual deed, and then the post-step, which Basu Chuji Jetsun uses as an example for this category. Less so. So then when we look at killing and thinking about it for a long period of time before one does so, this becomes a karma that is accumulated and a karma that is done. So one engaged in the killing and accumulated it. So it's these two categories, because this duration of thinking about it, this premeditation is present.
So then the fourth category, or the fourth permutation, note, is that which is neither. So it says, killing that is karma that you have neither done nor accumulated is whatever is not included in the above three. So it's not included in a karma that's done but not accumulated. It's not included in a karma that's accumulated but not done. It's not accumulated in something which is both accumulated and done. Then it is necessarily that fourth category of that which is not accumulated nor done. Tree. Okay, so we could say the subject tree. The subject tree is not karma that one has done but not accumulated. The subject tree is not karma that is accumulated but not done. The subject tree is not something that's a common locus between that which is accumulated and that which is done. So therefore the subject tree is something which is neither, that fourth permutation. So to
arrive at the meaning of this becomes a little difficult. So this is the reason for this exercise. I don't want to use that word, but that's the reason for this information, is because at face value it could be difficult to understand.
What that Lama Gulhadu, Majin la Suba, Lama Gulhadu,
So here it says that we're using the example of this killing, but it also one can apply this to the Ngao Go.
Majin Lane, Ngajibi Payang, Tijin to Chiriba, Riba Shalas, Majin Lane, Tasu Juba Chinsaro. Sujoban Majishi Saro, Tamajin, what Niba Marbe, then Gula, Go Gangalo, then Rabujas.
You know, the Gola, the Sum, the Yichi. Let's go. Chebile.
Majin Lane, Ngajibi Bas, Majima Lampa, Mazova Chuba, doing Tamatsu Ngaji Marbe. What did you let Jiriba, the Rabujas? Tangas what the Janama the Hamu that Tamajin and Ngajibi by Tiji to Jaros, Tajabaina, Tangasu Majile Shela Masaba to show, Majile Shela Masaba, Suju Shela Masaba de Mekebe Sheva Tijama River, Tamajile Shela Masaba ne, Mekebe Sheba Dan. Mekebe Sheba Dan, Mulan Sheba Joe, the Corajo Marbe. Majin Shela Masaba Josana, and the Mekebe Sheba, Mekebe Majima Leba. Then Mulan Sheba, what the Jukamana Samarbe. Ja. Then Majin Sala Majeba ne, Koma Gugu San Junior Santa Koma Magobater. Tijares. Ta Majin Shesa Niga Sawan, the Junior Koma Gugu Santana, Koma Guna, Shesa Niga Sawan, Young Josun Sawan is what didn't Mokurajan Jaja Umarve. Sajin Jajudan Demore. Majin and Tankamana Doale and Suju Shela Masaba Tenaji, Doale, Majin Shela Masaba ne, Mekebi Shebato to Chukoraja Marve. Korajan Wote, Majin Shela Masaba. Shela Saba ne Majima language on San Juram Zandan, and the Majima Lebaina, Sala Majeba. Tatane Goma Gus on Juram Zandan, Goma Gubaina, Sala, she was Jungan Josun Ledres, and then Somba Jebate was the Hamasun Matubas, what Tena Korajan Yajin Ruda, and just Shewota, Majin and Kene. Suju Shela Masaba Naji Majime Majin Shela Masaba ne Mekebi Shebatan what in Haja Koraji Jota
Nilan Dang
what in Rabu
Sheba.
Majin can tea Korajana Niban down Dabaru.
So it says, also understand in the same way as appropriate the non-virtuous actions from stealing through senseless speech. So the other non-virtuous activities we find after killing. So we've used the of the body and speech. So when we look at which is a total of 7. So we've looked at killing. So then we look at the next category, which is stealing. This is the second category of non-virtue of the body. And we say that we apply the same points to that. If we have thought about stealing for something for a very long time, we have this premeditation, and then we steal it, then this becomes a greatest level of non-virtue. This becomes a karma, a stealing that is accumulated. So here we find this other qualifying factor that a stealing where there is this motivation, action, and final step, then is this makes it accumulated. But when we look at a stealing that is not accumulated, we have to circle back to where we were before, where we find those disqualifications from Compendium of Determination, from Asanga's text. So we find that done unknowingly, that done in a dream. So if one steals and doesn't know, or steals and in a dream and so forth, then this becomes an example of a stealing action that is stealing that is not accumulated. So we apply the same reasoning that we did to killing to the stealing to determine whether it's accumulated or not. So when we look at stealing, we can have stealing that's done and then stealing that's accumulated, like we have in these other ones. So once we understand the meaning of one of these, then we can apply the same reasoning to the rest of them as well. So that's it, I think.
Ta majin la sala majiba ne majin la sala majiba ne majin la juni mo santan majin la majiba ina sala majiba res sala majiba ne su cha su bi sher yone mo jesu tuji cheba shela su no majiba os majin la sala majiba ne majin la juni mo santan tuji jesu tu majin maleba os o de jaji marbe
Jurembo Salalang Yene Malen.
Goma Maguna, no other Muni, Redua. That's one about the Shela Sabat Marva, Goma Junior Sandan, Goma Kubaina, Shela Saba, Niga Imba, Jungon Josun Sai, Majilantres, or Kutula.
So when we look at this in terms of the 4 permutations and we compare, we look at how that works, we would find. So the subject stealing. So we can find a stealing that's done but not accumulated in the case where it hasn't been thought about for a long time. So one is stolen, but it hasn't been premeditated, it hasn't been thought about for a long time, therefore it's a stealing that's done but not accumulated. The second one we find where we think about it for a long time, for instance, thinking about stealing for a long time, but then don't actually engage in the stealing. This is a karma that's accumulated but not done in the case of stealing. And then when we look for something which is both, or a common locus between the two, we would find a stealing that takes place after there is premeditation, after there's a long duration of thinking about it, then this becomes a karma that is done and accumulated. That's it.
So then
when we would say a stealing that is not accumulated, nor is it done, is a show, or show an example of it, we would say a tree. Less so. So then when we look at the next sexual misconduct, we would look at it in the same way. There's is it accumulated or not accumulated, and it's not accumulated in the cases of those done in a dream or unknowingly, etc., etc. So we would apply that same reasoning, whether you've thought about it for a long time or not, etc., to sexual misconduct, and then the other ones as well.
And Louis goes to Junior Masanda, Louis Majeba Ina, Sala Majeba. Sala Majeba, ne? Sucha Sibis, Junior Masanda said, Louis Junior Masanda, Louis goes on Junior Masanda, Louis Majeba Ina, Sala Majeba.
Less so.
Then Shela Sabate, Louis goes on Junior Masanda, Louis Jena, Jungon Josun Sama de Marbe, Shela Saba.
Less so.
Yeah.
So when we look at sexual misconduct in terms of the permutations, we would say that the first would be a sexual misconduct that has been done but not analyzed for a period of time. There isn't this premeditation there. There isn't thinking about it for a long time. So this becomes the first possibility, sexual misconduct that is done but not accumulated. The next possibility is sexual misconduct that is accumulated but not done, is the case where someone thinks about sexual misconduct for a long period of time but then doesn't actually engage in that action. So then this becomes that second possibility of that which is done, that accumulated but not done. The third category of something which is both, or a common locus we would find, would be a sexual misconduct that is engaged in after premeditation, after thinking about it for a long period of time, that has in its presence these three: the motivation, the actual action, and then the final step, or the post step. So this would be something which is both. So then something which is neither, we would just say a tree.
Less
so. So then when we move on, we move to the four non-virtues of the speech. Lying, harsh words, divisive speech, and gossip. So these we look at in the same way. We circle back to the Compendium of Determinations, where we would look at these four permutations, and we would say the first possibility, the first permutation, is a lying which is done but not accumulated. So we find in the case of where one, lying is done but not accumulated, we find in the case of done in dreams or done unknowingly, etc. Muchi tambo.
And then Shela Sala Majiba, Shela Masaba, She goes to Junior Masanta, Juma Shebaina, Sala Majiba. Sala Majiba.
So if we think about lying for a long period of time but don't actually engage in it, then this becomes that second possibility. Lying, which is a karma that is accumulated but not done. So there's this premeditation, thinking about it for a long time, but not the actual execution of the task. So this then becomes accumulated, which is the second possibility.
Jun Shela Sabane, Junim Jajun Shegusan, Junim Santan, Jajun Shebaina, Shela Sabaris, Jungan Josun Junis.
So the next is the possibility of the lying, which is accumulated and done. This is the common locus, and that becomes a lying that is done after premeditation, after thinking about it for a long time, that has those factors of the motivation, action, and completion, or final step.
That Jun Tama Marbe Tama Shela Masaba, Yankorachi Marbe, Tama Shela Masaba, the Makebi Sheba, Malan Sheba, Tama Sala Majeba, Tama Shegu on Junim Santan, Tama Majena, Sala Majeba.
Less so.
Tama Shegu on Junim Santan, Tama Shebaina, Shesa Niga Sama.
Less so.
And you got my machine Tabaja.
Less so.
What to call it?
So then when we look at the next, divisive speech, we would look at it in the same way. So we look at divisive speech that is done but not accumulated, and that's an example of something done in a dream or something done unknowingly. We look at the next possibility, which is the karma that is accumulated but not done, in terms of divisive speech, and we would say divisive speech that has been thought about for a long period of time, but then not carried out. The next possibility is divisive speech that is done and accumulated. In this case, we find divisive speech that one has thought about for a long time, has this premeditation, and then carries it out. This would be an example of a common locus between the two, divisive speech that is done and divisive speech that is accumulated. And then when we look at the fourth possibility, something which is neither, then it becomes easy with, again, we could say a tree.
Titu wate majete seju sala majebane mekebi sheba malan sheba kola jije seju sala majebane ne tudan tango san jude masan dan tudan madan ba ina tudan sala majeba
Lesso.
Niga yimba tudan tango san jude masan dan
Lesso.
tudan tan ba ina
Lesso.
niga yimba marbe yongon josun sama niga mayimba da shin da jan tiro
Lesso. So then the next category is harsh words. So then when we look at harsh words and we look at it in terms of harsh words that are done and accumulated in terms of the four permutations, we begin with the harsh words that are done but not accumulated, and then we find again the case of a dream, the case of done unknowingly. The next category, a harsh words that are accumulated but not done, would be thinking about harsh words for a long period of time, having this premeditation, but then not actually carrying out the bad speech, not saying those bad things. So then this becomes the harsh words that are accumulated but not done. Then the next category, that which is done and accumulated, harsh words that are done and accumulated are the case where someone engages in bad speech, says bad things, and has thought about doing so for a long period of time, has that premeditation. This becomes the consequence, and then we find something which is neither. We would use the example again of a tree.
Da ngachi marbe ngachi shela mazaba ngachi ne shela mazaba ne tene kazure mekebi sheba don kola jije ngachi sala majeba ne ane ngachi shegu san junum san tan ngachi machina sala majeba niga yimba junum ngachi shegu san tan ne ane ngachi sheba ina jungon josu san niga yimma je niga mayim shinda bja diumde.
So then we would apply the four permutations to the final negativity of the speech, gossip. We would do it in the same way. We would go back, circle back to where we were, and we would say, gossip that is done but not accumulated is gossip that's carried out but then not thought about for a long... gossip that's carried out, in example, in a dream or unknowingly. Next category, that which is gossip that is accumulated but not done, we find in the case of thinking about gossiping for a long period of time, having a premeditation but then not actually carrying out the task of gossiping. If we look at that which is both, common locus, we would find that thinking about for a long period of time gossiping and then engaging in gossip, and then something which is neither would be a tree.
Nasen Nasa Yiji Sonde. Nasen Nasa Loda Sondele, Yiji Son La, Yiji Son La, Maniba Manjins, Sala Majiba to Yomaris, Yiji Son La, Nasen Nasa Loda Sondele, Sala Majiba to Yomaris, Sala Majiba. Matombo, and the Chedu Majiba down, Yaji Shed Juba Yomaris, what soon daughter. So it
says the three mental non-virtuous actions do not have the second permutation. So we don't find in the three non-virtuous actions, which are covetousness, harmful intent, and wrong view, we don't find any of those which are karma that is accumulated but not done. So we don't find the second permutation available for those. Sapa Majepa Mayan. Mepa. Okay.
Ta yiji nasen lota sombutele nasen ju remu santana nasen ju remu santa bayina nasen diba sabayi diba sandres masaba yomares nasen ju remu santana masaba yomare nasen ju remu santana nasen diba sabare madu masaba yomare ane lota ju remu santana lota diba sabare madu masaba yomare.
So the reason for this is if you think about for a long period of time covetousness, you've carried it out. If you think about harmful intent, you've carried it out. If you think about wrong view, you've carried it out. And it's for that reason that we don't have that which is accumulated but not done.
But we
do not have that second permutation.
Nasen Junior Bosantana, Nasen Diba Masaba Tigmar, Sanus. Nasen Divas, Nasen Junior Santana, Nasen Diva Sasabare, Nasen Junior Santana, Nasen Diva Sasabares, Lota Junior Santana, Diva Sasabares, Masaba Yomares.
So there is no such thing as a not accumulated mental action that's done. If one thinks about covetousness, then it's done. If one thinks about harmful intent, then it is done. If one thinks about the wrong view, then it is done. That's the action of the mental action.
Matombo Laya, Chedu Maji Badan, Matombo, Makebe Shibatan, Malant Shibatan, Jeji Juba to Sumarbe, Tinone, Jeji Chedu Maji Badan, Jeji Juba, what Nasan Yomares.
So then it says there are no mental actions that are not intentionally done, nor are there any that you are forced by another to commit. So when we look at the first permutation and we're looking at it in terms of those mental actions of covetousness, harmful intent, and wrong view, we'll find that these aren't points or qualifications that can be made, because there are not intentionally done mental actions, nor are there mental actions that someone forces you to do. So these are not points or factors for the mental actions.
Sabile, Doan Ship Mexican water thunder, Shesa going to shave a tare.
Less so.
That do you going to soon to your was, do you going to soon to your doing us shade there, Tonju Jule, Jenen Jule, Landa Jela Jules, Les Sasa the lady and Jabot, Sendel Pim can lay you are, tell Tonju Jules, Tonju Sendel Gogro. Jiva Shamal Pim can tell Jenen Jules. Jawashima Penji, Pension Pin, Landrajan, Lesson to the Legota, Niba.
So then we've gone through the section. So when we look at the sections, we have the distinction between projecting and completing karma, and then karma whose results you will definitely or only possibly experience. So within the section of karma whose results you will definitely only possibly experience, there are points that are made. Karma that is done, karma that is accumulated, so we've gone through that. And now we're moving on to the section that goes over the three types of certainty of experiencing results, or the 3 times. So those experienced now in this life, those experienced in future lives, and those experienced in many, many lives later. So we say there is a projecting karma that will be experienced in this life, future life, or many lifetimes later. So that's what we're going to get into now, those 3 experiences. 3 ways that one experiences, something like that.
What the Nabi Lekadutla, what the Nabi Lekadutla, Shesajugun, Shebadan, and Tujugun, Sontueva, Jajib Sajini Dina, what that is near the land.
So Jayan Sheba says that there are 2 parts. First, under this section, first karma that is done, and then karma that is accumulated. So, no, I'm sorry. There's the categories of the Jayan Sheba Yanjar Suranam. Lesso.
What the Larichima Jena, Pendugivan on Judro.
Lesso.
Pendugivan Judroa, Yajibi Nemang at the Sajini Din.
Lesso.
Shesajugone, Shebadan, Tujugun Sun to yours. Shesajugone, Shebile, Sabi Leda, Duan Majid Tareta, the Sanroa. Tanyeba Tujugun Sun to Yawade, Tonjujule, Jene.
So here in this section we find karma whose result you will definitely or only possibly experience, and then Lama Tsongkhapa breaks it into more categories. He breaks it into karma that is done, and then karma that you have accumulated. So that's the first section, karma that's done and karma you've accumulated. And then the next section goes over those 3 types of experience. And the 3 types of experience are those which happen in the future life, this life, those that happen in the next life, and those that happen in many future lives later. So that's the section that we're going to get into now. The viewpoint of time at which you experience. So I guess that's the category, from the viewpoint of time, because do means time. So the timing on it. So that's what this section is called, the viewpoint of time, according to Jayan Sheba's outline. So these are the outline, the numbers in the outline of Jayan Sheba's text.
What about the cheese? What that and my
So in order to get into these different types of karma, this life, next life, and future lives, there's a lot of information. So we're just not going to get into it today. We're going to end here. Less so. For instance, so the karma that you experience here and now is referring to that karma which gives rise to a result in this life. So we'll go through it slow. So that's the karma, they label it as karma that you experience here and now, karma that you will experience after you're reborn, and then what's the last? Karma that you'll experience at other times. So these are the 3. That's how they're labeling it in the text. So I just wanted to label it the same way. So you have this in English. So slowly you'll be able to understand so many of these books over here because you have this in English. So the meaning of these, so here what Rinpoche is pointing to are the pronouncements of Lord Buddha in the authentic Indian commentaries, the Kangjur and the Tanjur. Rinpoche is saying that they're all condensed into this text.
Shanchu Denga, Sadanga, Donani, Karaka Deji, or the Bajani Bajani, Tenju no Tenju.
Karaka J, the Basuband.
Basubadu, Karaka Deji, Sanga, Sadanga, Donani, then the Shambi Chudanga, Motu Jelaso, or the Bajani Nishu.
So we have sanghas. We find in this so many 20 texts in general. So we have the sanghas, 5 treatises on the levels and the 2 compendiums. Lord Maitreya's 5 texts, and then we have the 8 texts of Vasubandhu. So we find all of these collections contained within here. So the pronouncements of Lord Buddha in the authentic Indian commentaries flow into the lamp like a river, like water. So we have 10 minutes, so if anyone has questions, go ahead.
You getting the mic there?
Can you get a beatbox?
So you said that there are no mental actions that can be unintentional.
Right.
What if someone were mentally ill and couldn't help having thoughts?
The Sem Junior na, then Chikshena the consul the Sem Rawang Yomare. Then Chikshena the consul Hako Gomare. Then this Sapa Yimba. Gangasena the Sapa Yimba Chepa Mayimba Yichile Yomare. The Sapa Yimba Chepa Yure. Yeah, this sum. Lesso.
Ijukuna Nasen Junior was on Tawaina, and Nasen to what then the Sha Kuntu, or the Junior was Nasen Junior was on Tamatara, Nasen Diba Sabares, Masabaja is Salamajiba Mundus, many Bomundus.
Lesso. Then a Kongi Triwa, the Sem Junior, the Sansan Main Yumba. Then the Chipa, then Moon Nipa Yomare. So when we have a covetousness, for instance, as soon as one's thinking about covetousness for a long time, it's already imbued with some sort of attachment, hatred, or ignorance. So then that necessarily becomes an action that's accumulated and done. So there isn't, in the case of the mental actions, of non-virtuous actions, as covetousness, harmful intent, and wrong view, there isn't a case where there is an accumulation that's not done, because it's being carried out when that thought process is when the thought process is happening. So when we look at it in terms of mental illness, Rinpoche said it would be the same. So someone who they're thinking it, then they're carrying it out. So mental illness wouldn't disqualify it and make it not done. It would still be a karma that's accumulated and done. Cat, Stasha and Cat, so whichever order.
Thank you. I've been wondering this for a long time. When you have a pet cat or dog who is dying and in severe pain, and with compassion, you give that animal some medicine that causes it to die, to put it out of its misery. What kind of karma does that cause for the person who does that?
Okay. The sansan ki dan shimi yure. Then konsu the gengo chana, then the shimi gengo chana. Then sansan natsa mambo yure. Then kon dugyo mambo yure. In Arila, the menkang the kajao du. Then konsu this segadu. Gangin sena the kon dugyo mambo yure. Natsa chembo yure. Natsa ja tugmare. Then the lay gari sagadu kongi triwa. The shimi dan the ki. The kajana le gari sagudu. Gangisen and ninji dan shamba yure.
That is all could not nago the whole Shambat Niju. They want to say the Diva Unate Chuju injury. Debate, you know.
So when you see that your animal is suffering, and you have to end its life, and you do so, you don't have to, you end its life because of love and compassion, there is still the presence of a killing, but it's much, much less than would be there if there wasn't that attitude and the reasoning for doing it. So it wouldn't be as heavy, it'd be smaller. Then the kongi chiwa, the main nyomba makepa yin, makepa yure. Then the yichi le makepa yomare. The kongi chiwa. Then the sem rawa yomare. Then chikshena konsu sem makepa yin. Yene the kelen the yomare the yichi le sum the makepa yomare. Let me just look something up. I'm going back to your question, Chris. The Digsum, you Cheran Lenja Digsum, the Injike then the Lenja Digsum, the Ngejun, Gongel Nimachik. Okay, we're fine. I just wanted to make sure I didn't ask him in Tibetan incorrectly, so I went back to the English to make sure I asked correctly. That's all.
Is being a female non-virtuous completing karma?
The Jemen, Jena, the Buddhan Jemen. The Ni, the May, Ewa Ni, Buddhan Jemen. The Jemen, Zujigile Megewa.
Jemen.
Pulldan Pumo. The May, Ewa Ni, Pulldan Pumo. The Pumo, Zujigile Megewa Yimba. No.
Zujigile Delta, Pomulea Dawada Dungeni Yudo. Pomuk Dawade, Gawak Zubajibare, Dungende.
So really a woman has both experiences of happiness and suffering. Those experiences of happiness are caused by a virtuous completing karma, and those experiences of suffering are caused by a non-virtuous completing karma. And it doesn't matter, so boy or girl, there's a mixture of different completing karmas.
So
everywhere we find this happiness and suffering, whether it's those who assert that they are religious followers, or those who assert that they are not religious followers, or those who are in the lower realms of cyclic existence, we find this wanted and unwanted experience that is throughout those.
What the Bajat does Santan or the
So when we look at what's in this text and we think about it, this is real meditation. So and then when we ascertain it and think about it, this is meditation. So we think about it a lot, then we increase this understanding, make it much bigger. This is very good. So if you're able to think in this way, then there isn't any doubt about what virtue or non-virtue is. This is very good. So we're all set. Concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. Thank you everyone again for coming to Chenrezig. The Sheda Sobuldo. So clear his teaching. Concluding mandala offering and dedication. You got it? Okay. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected to the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in great philosophical texts, exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Suji Rinpoche Guti Shapi Denanang.